What is going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here for Wild Card Weekend with Dilly Vanilli. Wild Card Weekend is here. The NFL playoffs are here. We're starting on Saturday. We have games on Sunday, 2 games on each day. Wild Card Weekend is always one of my favorite. It's probably my second favorite weekend in the NFL other than Divisional Weekend. That's usually my favorite because I feel like the most competitive games and kind of a good mix of enough games to make you entertained, but, the best teams. So the Wild Card Weekend is only second to Divisional Weekend, which is next weekend. But we're here for Wild Card Weekend, and we have some very intriguing Wild Card matchups this week. We have probably the best layout, the best schedule of Wild Card games I've seen in a number of years, Dylan. I think this is one of the best, most competitive weekends for Wild Card. We don't have any teams that are not interesting. I feel like all these teams are interesting. All of them are compelling. All of them you want to watch play. So I think it makes for a great Wild Card Weekend. Dylan, what's your thoughts on this Wild Card Weekend and just what's been going on with you as the new year 2019 has started?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Of course, it's playoff season. This is what we worked for 17 weeks to get to this moment right here. All these teams are intriguing, like you said. There are no Titans teams. There are no Vikings teams. There's an opportunity for every single team to win the Super Bowl, to get there, and this is where you start at. There's no team under 9-7, or excuse me, under 10-6. All of them have double-digit win records, which is always a big positive in Wild Card Weekend because you never know who could win. There could be something very compelling with it. All 4 matchups, I think, have something unique to them. They have some kind of intrigue of whether or not this team could pull off the upset or this team can move on to the divisional round and keep going on. So I'm really liking the matchups we got here. We're going to talk about them in detail, but overall, a very good layout for the first week of the playoffs.
All right, Dylan. So how we're going to do this for you fans watching right now live, we're going to do this. So we're basically going to split it up as if it's 4 different videos. So we're going to go through the first game. We're going to answer all the questions about the first game in the chat, and we'll include that in a separate preview video to release for all the people that just want to watch that individual preview and that individual prediction. So let's say it's Seahawks and it's Cowboys. We're going to talk about the Seahawks and Cowboys, give our predictions, our scores, and then we'll answer specific questions regarding to that game, and then we'll move on to the next game. So don't just throw out random comments about random games if you can, kind of keep the flow, or you're going to get skipped and you're going to be wait till the end. Like if you have a random comment, some about maybe Antonio Brown, we'll talk about that at the end of the video, but that's how we're going to go through this prediction and pick process, just so you guys know what we're doing here. So Dylan, bro, I think we got to talk about it right off the bat. All right. It's 2019. It's been 2 days and we have 100 subscribers. So what can the people, really the new viewers of the Bottom Line View expect from the Bottom Line View just before we get into the wild card picks?
Well, thank you guys for that. That's obviously a huge accomplishment. You're going to expect big-time NFL videos. We always make good football content. We'll try to give you out there as much as possible. I know Mitch makes content daily. I try to make as much content as possible. So you're going to see all the recaps. We make a lot of recaps. We do some live streams. We get all these picks videos for every single week. And you're going to get some good topic videos as well. And I know we got a lot of things planned up for the playoffs, and I'll announce my kind of stuff later on at the end. But there's a lot of good videos to come, for sure.
All right. So, Dylan, the comments real quick before we get into our first game, which will be Party's Colts and the Texans. Let's look at the chat real quick. Ultra was here right from the jump. Party's here as well. He's excited to hear what we have to say about the Colts. Ultra was confused whether this was canceled or not. No, we were waiting on the great Father Hawk Kevole, but he has not shown up. He's taking care of some cats. Hopefully he's getting paid for taking care of those cats, but he's just a good citizen, I think, Kevole. Party ranks his top 5 quarterbacks in the playoffs. What do you think about this, Dilly Vanilli? We have Mahomes at number 1.
Okay.
Breeze at number 2.
Okay.
Luck at number 3. Rivers at number 4, and Russell Wilson at number 5.
Wilson? Actually, I like this list. In terms of what the production is from this year, if we're only looking at that, I would say this is a pretty accurate list. And this is for the quarterbacks to do the most work for their team. So I like it.
Ultra responds by saying, I would say Ryan, Ben, and Wilson. You can make a good case for any of them, but Wilson is good. A couple people saying, Dylan, you're wrong. The Eagles are 9-7, not 10-6.
Oops.
Aiden is in the chat. He says, I say Leonard for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm a Charger fan, but I think it's close. What else we have? Anything else? He also says, I want to see Colts versus Chargers. That would be nice. So that would have to be the AFC Championship.
Yep.
So those are the comments before we get into the predictions. Let's start it. All right. The Houston Texans are taking on the Indianapolis Colts wild card weekend. It's 3 versus 6. It's AFC South football. It's the third time these two teams have played. And if I expect anything from this game, Dylan, I expect a high-scoring affair. I expect a game that's going to go down to the wire because that's exactly what we saw in the first two games. One went into overtime, and then the other one was right down in the fourth quarter. So we have two young stud quarterbacks. We have a lot of exciting defensive players. Darius Leonard for the Colts, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney for the Texans. This is going to be a very fun game. Dylan, break down what you see from both sides and then give me your prediction for who you think is going to win, the Texans or the Colts.
I'm very excited for this matchup. I always like divisional matchups in the wild card round. These are always very intriguing. We see these teams against each other the most amount of times in the regular season, so we get to get the climax of the third game in the playoffs, which is always very nice. For the Colts, you got Andrew Luck, comeback player of the year. He's leading this team. He's doing very, very good. He's been slinging the rock very well. You saw it in Week 17. He was asked to get that playoff position, and as Captain Andrew Luck does, he got the job done and got the victory against another division rival, the Titans. The running game with Marlon Mack is always very solid. It works well. It wasn't great. It wasn't very useful in Week 17, but that wasn't the point. He's still a very good running back, and they use him and Hines as well. The receiver group, T.Y. Hilton's always going to be a big-time threat. You got Inman, and you got Eric Ebron, who knows how to score touchdowns. And as Kevole is tweeting us right now, he wants to get in. So you got that on the offensive side. The defensive side, you said it in our live stream last week. The defensive line has been pretty underrated, all things considered. With no big-name talent, there are still good things to like about them, and they've been able to hold their ground. And the linebacker, Darius Leonard, has been tremendous. So I've been liking what the Colts are bringing to me, especially with their long stretch of good production. I think they're 9-1 in their last 10 games, so that's definitely the way to go into the playoffs. For the Texans, you've seen what Deshaun Watson can do. You know he's doing very well. Lamar Miller has actually been pretty underrated, I would say, pretty decent overall. And DeAndre Hopkins, who's stopping that man? He didn't even have a drop. He had 115 catches, I believe, and no drops this year, which is huge production. And then defensively, all those big guys up front is going to create a heck of a matchup for the Colts. I'm actually picking the Colts. I'm picking the 6th seed Colts to beat the Texans in an upset. The biggest thing about the Texans this season was, are they facing tough competition? Are they able to win these big games and go out there and finish the job? And honestly, against the best teams that they played, I don't think they really did it. The Eagles in Week 15, when they could have clinched their division, they weren't able to get that win. I believe it was Week 16, sorry. Week 16, they could have gotten that division, could have gotten that there. There's other games where I was like, this should be a win for them. Another matchup with the Colts the second time around. They lost 24-21. They didn't look as hot. They've been able to pick up the wins they needed to win, but they haven't gotten the clutch victories to solidify me as a number one team here. So although I like what the Texans bring, I think the Colts, led by Andrew Luck, he wants to make another statement, realize get rid of all the injury talk from last year and all the criticism this way because of his great year in the regular season. He's going to continue that way in the playoffs. I think he's going to get a solid upset victory against the Texans.
All right, so I get what you're saying. The Colts, they're a team that's hot. The Texans, a team that maybe some people overrate a little bit. And I think you're going with the hotter hand in Andrew Luck. And I'm also going with the Indianapolis Colts. And there are a few reasons why. I think this game, to me, even before we get into the matchup, This game, to me, Dylan, I'll have my closest eyes on. And the reason that is because I think this game will completely change the complexion and the entire outlook of the AFC playoffs. Because I think if the Texans beat the Colts and move on, of course they take on the Patriots. The Colts, if they win, they take on the Chiefs. I think depending on the matchups, depending on who wins this game, we'll see a different winner in the AFC conference. That's why I'm going to have very close eyes on who wins this game. Then we continue on, and just getting into this game, Houston is a much better team at home. They're 6-2 at home, but one of those losses, of course, was against the Colts. Both of those games were extremely close, and I think the thing that we saw in both of those games is that the Colts dominated the line of scrimmage. They were just very aggressive on the defensive side. As you said, as I said, the Colts defensive line has dominated in terms of getting sacks on Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, there's that statistic floating out there. No quarterback entering the playoffs has been sacked more in NFL history than Deshaun Watson. And against the Colts sacked him 7 times and 5 times. That's a lot of times to get hit. And if the Colts can get that pressure even in the Texans' home building, that's going to make a difference. And Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, this combination's been unbelievable. 199 yards, 115 yards for T.Y. Hilton, over 450 yards one game, almost 400 yards the other game, and 6 touchdowns combined for Andrew Luck. I just think when you look at it, the Texans' offense, their offense is very simplistic. It's basically throw it up to DeAndre Hopkins and pray and hope he makes a play. Outside of that, there's no Will Fuller. There's no Demaryius Thomas. Lamar Miller's inconsistent. You don't have a ton of guys to take away if you're a Colts defense. A Colts defense that's #1 in scoring defense since week 7. Not a lot of people know that. If they can shut down DeAndre Hopkins and kind of keep Deshaun Watson in the pocket, get some pressure, I think the Colts can definitely win this game. And I really like Frank Reich. I think he's been one of the coaches of the year. He's brought that third down package from Philadelphia, the #1 third down team last season, to this season with the Colts, #1 third down offense with the Colts. I still don't think the Texans secondary is great. So I'm going to go with the Colts here. Andrew Luck, I think they're playing well. They're playing well on both sides, not like a typical Colts team that only plays good offense. And I think that's enough to win this game against their rival. And I did predict the score to be 27-23. I think this is a mid-20s game. It's a close game. Don't get me wrong. Watt will make plays. Clowney will make plays. Deshaun Watson will make plays. But when I get past those 3 or 4 or 5 players that are at the top of the list for the Texans, the Colts have better depth and are a better team. I think they're just a little underrated. So I'm going to go with the Colts. All right, let's get to the chat regarding the Colts and Texans game. Do you have anything to argue there that I had a point there, Dylan?
No, I like the points. I'll give my point score as well because I forgot to mention in my analysis. I'll go with the Colts 28 and the Texans. What do we want to go with? 24. 28-24, I think, will be the final of this score.
All right, checking the chat. Party says Ryan Kelly is back, the center of the Colts, but the Texans have Kiki Kote, who is very underrated. So 2 key players coming back in the lineup for both teams. The first matchup, Party says, versus the Colts, Coty destroyed the Colts in both rushing and the passing game. So he's a weapon for the Texans that they really need without Demaryius Thomas. What else here? Party is predicting that the Colts will play the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. So that's interesting. He thinks his Colts are going to make a run. Robot Guy says the Colts and the Pats would be a good rematch. And what else? That's about it regarding this game. But I think a lot of people in the chat are liking the Colts in this game. Not a ton of Texans love, so that's kind of interesting.
Hello there. Sorry I'm late.
Kevole is somewhere random.
Yes, I'm back in Egypt.
Oh, he's back in Egypt, but you can only tell you're half in Egypt because you can see the other side of America on your
food courts.
I mean, America. Yes.
Well,
so Kevole, we were just talking about the first matchup, the Colts and Texans, and I described to the people before that we're kind of individually breaking it up. So we're going to go game by game, and then we'll do comments after every game. So give us your opinion on the Texans and the Colts and who you have winning.
Well, you could see my video. I did a video presenting I think is going to the Super Bowl and who's going to win the Super Bowl. So you can check that out. I think that was up today. Go watch it. Sure, it's fascinating. The precursor, the way that I looked at the AFC is I think it's anybody's ball game, quite frankly. I think that you can make a legitimate argument for any one of these 6 teams to actually go to the Super Bowl. And you can make a legitimate argument of why each of these 6 teams will lose the Super Bowl. For me, I think I looked at the Colts, and you could argue that there's no experience, but you actually can argue that there is experience because you have Frank Reich that won the Super Bowl. You have Adam Vinatieri that won a Super Bowl.
Multiple Super Bowls.
And I called them the Graybeards. You can see them with the Graybeards. Andrew Luck has won a playoff game. And the Houston Texans don't necessarily have that same experience, but I am in the minority, apparently, and picking the Houston Texans to win this game. I just look at the talent for talent. I just don't think the Colts are there yet. I wouldn't surprise me if the Colts necessarily won, but I think that Texans at home with Deshaun Watson, Kiki Kuchi, I think will have a big game. Lamar Miller needs to have a big game, and he's going to be very important. And I think that they're going to have – I think the Colts did a magnificent job holding out Derrick Henry last week, but they also were playing Blaine Gabbert, who missed a lot of throws. Deshaun Watson is not going to miss a lot of those throws that Blaine Gabbert threw at him last week. I just think the Texans at home are going to be a bit of a tougher matchup. The Colts are not there yet, but they are coming. I've got the Texans for this one.
Do you think that a lot of people are overrating the Colts?
No, I don't. Like I've said, you can kind of understand why people are picking the Colts because you look at the Texans schedule, though they've won a lot of games, there hasn't been anything that's really been a statement win. But the game that kind of impressed me was the comeback with Philadelphia, what Deshaun Watson did there. Kind of was the one thing that I was impressed with. I think they can match up with the Colts pretty well. I think it's going to be it can be close, but I think at home Houston's going to win.
All right. So that's our preview for the Texans and the Colts. If you guys enjoyed that, hit the like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL. All right, let's head to the next game. The next matchup. Well, should we stick with the AFC or do you want to go by schedule?
Well, let's go by time. I think that's still the way to go.
So that is Cowboys Seahawks, right?
Yep.
Cowboys Seahawks. Ooh. This is going to be fun. The Seattle Seahawks take on the Dallas Cowboys Saturday night prime time NFC football. Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. Zeke versus Carson in the power running game of the Seahawks. Of course, the great linebackers of the Seahawks versus the young great linebackers of the Cowboys. And the clapper himself, Jason Garrett, takes on the gum-chewing extraordinaire, Pete Carroll. It's going to be a fun one. Both of you guys are fans of both of these teams. So Cowboys for Dylan, Seahawks for Kevole. I'll let you guys start it off. Let's go with the road team first. Kevole, why do you think the Seattle Seahawks will beat the Dallas Cowboys on Saturday?
Well, to me, this is a very interesting and close matchup. I think for me, the way that I look at the NFC is it's 2 tiers. You've got the Saints, Rams, and we'll argue about where the Bears are in this. And you definitely got the Cowboys, Seahawks, and Eagles in another one. And you could argue where the Eagles are in this. But I think there's in a lot of ways, it's a really even matchup between 2 teams that play very similar. They like to run the ball. They like to play really tough defense. You've got Chris Richard as the passing game coordinator in Dallas. You've got Zeke Elliott, and the Dallas Cowboys can run. The Seattle Seahawks can run. You mentioned in your preview, Mitch, that the last time that we played each other. The Seahawks ran for 102 yards. They just kept running and running and running. And I think the Seahawks are going to be a team that's going to be very patient. I don't think that they're going to be necessarily worried what the score is or how many yards that they got. You look back at that game against Minnesota, that Monday Night Football game. Yes, the stats were ugly. Russell Wilson threw for 74 yards that game, but they weren't worried about it. They just played their game. That's what the Seahawks do. They just play their game. They're not worried about whatever is going on. I think an underrated fact in this game that I think that people are not paying attention to is Jerron Reed. I think is going to, with Frank Clark, going to cause a lot of problems for the front seven of Dallas. I do respect the Dallas Cowboy offensive line. I think that that's going to be a very good matchup. And I do respect the Dallas Cowboys linebackers. And I would argue that I think for position, one of the areas that I would give the Cowboys an edge is in the linebacker crew. I would argue that the Cowboys linebackers are better than the Seahawks linebackers. Even though the Seahawks have Bobby Wagner, I think the Cowboys depth-wise are better. I think to me what this is going to come down to is the offensive skill sets of both teams. And I think that, yeah, they'll let Zeke run. And I think Amari Cooper will get his catches. Maybe, maybe not. That kind of depends. He got a little frustrated last week. We're not talking a lot about that because Antonio threw a ball at Ben, but he got a little frustrated last week. And I think but I'm not scared of anybody else on the Dallas Cowboys. Where I think the Seahawks, are going to be able to throw Chris Carson and then pace that with Mike Davis and then toss something to Tyler Lockett. And Doug Baldwin is healthy in this game. So I think, and then Russell Wilson versus Dak, I think is a big edge. And I think Pete Carroll and Jason Garrett is a big edge as well. So for me, the way that I look at it, I think this is going to be a really great matchup. Good game. But I think at the end, I think the Seahawks experience, and I think the overall Seahawks depth on offense is the difference. And that's why I am picking the Seahawks to win.
And Kevole, you did forget one thing. You did forget about Rashad Penny's 30-plus yard run where he runs backwards through the line, across the field, and then up the field. You forgot about that one.
No, that's usually a Russell Wilson
30-yard run
play.
that's like 65 yards.
That's Russell Wilson, and Rashard Penny does attribute to that.
Okay, so we have one guy for the Seahawks. The Seahawks fans taking the Seahawks. Not a big surprise there, but a nice preview, Kevole. Very in-depth. Dilly Vanilli, you're the Cowboys fan. Are the Cowboys going to win? Are they going to win at home? Are they going to win in the playoffs? Or are they going to lose to the Seahawks? What's going on?
All right, well, we got to talk about this. First of all, if you guys watch all of our previews for our playoffs, watch every one of them. We all made one. So just shout out to everybody here. Second, I did say in the video that the Seahawks were going to win. Maybe it's because of my prediction that the Cowboys could win if I picked the other team. We're going to put that to the side right now. Let's talk about the in-depth kind of preview that Kevole had for the Cowboys side. The Cowboys are 7-1 at home. That's a huge advantage. If this was a road game, I would be much more scared of the fact that we're playing the Seahawks. But it's a very competitive matchup, and the Cowboys, one of the best things they do is play at home this year, which hasn't been the case usually in Jason Garrett's tenure. But this year, it's somehow worked. Dak Prescott over Russell Wilson is not a chance. Russell Wilson is by far the better quarterback. You'll see my comparisons of every kind of position tomorrow and which team is better for this game, so you guys can see that. But Russell Wilson's going to have the advantage there. The run games for both teams are very interesting. You got basically a three-man powerhouse with Chris Carson, who was 5th in rushing yards this year, surprisingly enough, 5th in rushing yards. He's going to do very well. And Zeke, who was, I think, the leader of that offense, he's going to have to be that leader, that focal point on offense to make sure that everything gets held down, whether if it's in his run game with this really solid, always close to 100 yards rushing. A lot of times he gets that mark, and it's always a good indicator of what can happen. And then you've got the offensive line for the Cowboys and the Seahawks, which are very interesting. The receiver groups definitely got to give the edge over here to what the Seahawks do, because Doug Baldwin is always very good when he's healthy. And that perfect passer rating for Tyler Lockett, I mean, nobody's been able to figure that out for 17 weeks. Why not stop going to that well? So that's a very interesting thing. But Amari Cooper is going to have his moments in the spotlight. I think the defenses for both the Seahawks and the Cowboys are very interesting. The defensive lines are going to try to put pressure on both teams. We'll see if both quarterbacks, who are very mobile quarterbacks, can rush out of the way and are able to make some throws. Dak has been holding on to the ball for way too long. think he has the most sacks accounted for just based off a quarterback, not because of the line pressure. So we'll see if both quarterbacks can move out of the mobility of the defensive linemen. The linebacker crews, Kev mentioned LVE and Jalen Smith are very, very good at what they do. But you've also got Bobby Wagner, the best linebacker in the game for the Seahawks. And then the secondaries, you look at how the Cowboys play is going to be very interesting. I think the biggest thing is coaching. Jason Garrett has never really showed to be a great coach, especially in the playoff times. And it always comes down to one big mistake or one crucial moment where it just doesn't come in the hands of the Cowboys. And we'll see if Pete Carroll can capitalize on that moment. As a Cowboys fan, I will be cheering for the Cowboys, and we will be live streaming this. Kevole and I will be on a live stream together on Saturday night to watch this game. So stay tuned for that one. But overall, it is one of the more even matchups we've got here, and I'm very intrigued by how these teams work together. I think it can produce a very fun game, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks. However, the Cowboys are 9-0 this season when they score more than 20 points. I don't even know how that's a statistical fact, but it's somehow if they get that 20 marker, that 20 plateau, that's the way to go. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks here as kind of one of my things, but I think both teams have a good chance to win, and overall, I'm looking forward to a really exciting game here.
Okay, I'm going to try and pick the pieces up. You guys know this game.
Echo.
Echo. Hello? Okay. I'll cut that out. Don't worry about that. I'm going to try and pick the pieces up for this matchup from you guys because you guys laid out pretty well the matchups on both sides of the football. And when looking at this game, I think what makes it so interesting is that both of these teams, like Kev said, are so similar because, their defenses – they have similar backgrounds. First off, their defenses, Pete Carroll defense, Richard on the other side now, who used to be in Seattle. Maybe that does help the Cowboys passing attack. Maybe he gives them a couple of tips. Who knows? I do think that both of these defenses play similarly in just the fact that they're very simplistic and they basically go out there and they say, hey, our talent's really good. We're going to go out there and try and do our thing, work hard, gang tackle, and outwork you and outplay you, not necessarily out-scheme you. And that's been a Seattle thing for a long time, and the Cowboys have sort of taken that. And I think this year they've been a lot better on defense than the Seahawks. I do think the Seahawks, they're an average defense, but I think the Cowboys are a more so an elite defense. When looking at both this game, mainly, it all is about the running game. Whoever can run the ball more effectively is going to win this game to me because I think both teams, that's their game plan. They want to run the ball. They want to establish that they can be more physical than the other team. And I think that team is going to be the Cowboys, just me personally. When looking at the last matchup, Ezekiel Elliott did have that terrible play in the game. But other than that, he ran for 16 times for 127 yards. That's 7.9 yards per carry. When looking at Carson, I understand the Seahawks run game has gotten a lot better since then, and they're number one in the league. But 3.2 yards per carry. And now coming into Dallas, that game was at home. Coming into Dallas, where Dallas is better at home as a team when they play, but they're also better against the run. They're third at home against the run when compared to fifth normally. And the Seahawks are kind of middle of the road against the run. So I just think in that regard, when I'm looking at the game at the simplest terms, whoever can run the ball best is going to win. And also the Cowboys now have that Amari Cooper threat that they didn't have earlier in the season. I think this game is completely different. I do agree. They have better coaching. They have a better quarterback. And that's what scares me a little bit. And some of the Cowboys kind of curses in the past where they just can't seem to not kick themselves in the foot. But I think the Cowboys, it looks like Crawford is going to play the game. Irving, I'm not sure. He's not practicing right now. The Seahawks are healthy. Doug Baldwin is maybe an X factor in this game because all season he's kind of been injured, but over the past couple of weeks he's played well. So look out for that. But I do think the Cowboys, just to me, they have a better defense. They can run the ball, I think, a little bit better in this game, and I think that's ultimately going to be the difference. I think it's a close, low-scoring game, and because these teams are so similar, it makes it a close game. So I'm going 23-16 Cowboys to win this football game. One thing I do want to say about the home record about the Cowboys for a negative point against the Cowboys, just in general in their schedule, they have played one really good team this whole season. So I want to see how that impacts them going into the playoffs. And when looking at their home, record, maybe the reason why they're so good at home is because of who they've played. I just kind of noticed that, but like they have not really played anybody. The Saints, they beat them. That's a fantastic win. Not trying to take that away from them, but like look at their schedule. You know, they beat the Jags, they beat the Redskins, they did beat the Eagles, okay, late in the season, but that was before the miracle Nick Foles stepped in. They beat the Giants. They've beat a lot of bad teams. And I think that's something, if you're a Cowboys fan, just to see how good is this team really. We don't really know. But just from what I've seen throughout the season, I think those key matchups, I'm going to go with the Cowboys, but I think it's really close, and I could see either team winning the game. So that's the Cowboys, the Seahawks. If you enjoyed this preview, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more NFL. Let's get to the comments section, guys. Dylan, do you want to answer the comments or bring up some of the important comments for the Seahawks-Cowboys game?
Yes. Let me get that right here. We scroll back down up to here. About the Cowboys and the Patriots. I've only got comments for the next 10 minutes. Party is actually going with the Cowboys' victory 26-21, surprisingly enough. He says that they are great at home. That's what he's taken as the advantage. Dirk Kant's got a Seattle 27-24 victory. I am not surprised based on that.
Just to throw this in there, I don't necessarily know if it's part of it is that the Cowboys are good at home, but I think it's more so that the Seahawks aren't at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. Like, if the Seahawks were at home, I'd pick the Seahawks. But because they're not at home, they are 4-4 on the road, and it's just not in Seattle. So I think it helps the Cowboys. Is
this the smallest over-under, or not over-under, but minus in the wild card round? I think it's pretty close.
Do you mean like the score?
Or yeah,
over-under? I would have to look.
I'm gonna look there.
I think it might be Chicago. Let me look.
Or not? I shouldn't say over/under, but you know what I mean, like the
line. I know what you mean. I know
the spread.
The spread. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. I think it is the closest spread we have.
I think it's 1 point right now for the Cowboys. Cowboys are minus 1.5, which is the same as the Texans game. Texans are minus 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, again, good matchups this week. Robot Guy says Russell Wilson is just going to pull something out of his ass, and them Hawks are going to win. So he thinks they'll get something happening there. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get another comment. Party says that the Seahawks beat the Cowboys. He thinks there's a chance that they can beat the Saints. That would be the matchup if we had a
certain Cowboys fan today told me that it was a joke that I said that the Saints would score 27 on the Cowboys.
A joke?
Yes, he thought it was crazy that I said that they would score that many points. But I did say that part of it is because I think if the Cowboys do play the Saints, they're going to turn it over a couple times, and that's going to be why the Saints do score that many points.
Interesting.
My opinion.
Let's see if we got any more here. Predators got a Cowboys 34-14 victory. I would be shocked if the score was 34-14.
How excited would you be if they won 34-14?
Oh God, my heart! I would be very excited. You'll see it on stream.
Kevole, how disappointed would you be?
I'd be pretty disappointed, but it's,
How would the Cowboys possibly win 34-14?
Turnover.
And a special teams play. And that's an area we didn't really discuss, but the CI special teams did not look good last week, and they will need to be better this week.
And we're not also saying that the Cowboys special teams is anything fantastic, because I don't think we believe that.
It is entirely average in every way.
Yeah.
So, that is the comments for this game.
All right. The next game is which? Chargers?
Chargers, Ravens, yes.
All right. Let's do this. The Baltimore Ravens, the LA Chargers. It's a rematch just from a couple of weeks ago, the 4 versus the 5. The Ravens squeaked in after a Cleveland Browns victory in Week 17. And the Pittsburgh Steelers now fighting with their star wide receiver, not in the playoffs. Ravens trying to make the most of this and beat a team they've already beat on the road at home. But I think a couple of us here, maybe all of us here, think it might be a little bit different the second time around, and we have some reasons why. The Chargers, a team that was basically a win or a loss away from the Chiefs from being the #1 seed, and they're probably one of the best wildcard teams we've seen in quite some time. So, guys, starting off with Dylan, what do you think of this second matchup between the Ravens and the Chargers, and who are you picking here?
I'm very intrigued by this matchup. We saw what happened in Week 16. The Ravens were able to take away the biggest focal points for this Chargers offense, and a team that was looking really hot coming out of that game, especially with their Chiefs victory on Thursday Night Football, just came in there and didn't give us the performance I think we were all expecting them to get, and the Ravens won 22-10. So this is a very intriguing matchup for that point. Lamar Jackson, you know what he's been able to create for the Ravens offense. Even if he hasn't been throwing a lot of touchdowns, that's not really the key thing for Lamar Jackson. It's all about rushing the football and going nuts while he did it. He could have had 4 rushing touchdowns if one wasn't called back for a penalty and he had just extended like 2 inches farther last week against the Browns. That's besides the point. He's created some kind of energy for this team, which I think some Ravens teams with Joe Flacco was lacking. I know Joe Flacco was somehow great in the playoffs, but that's neither here or there. So you know what the run game can do. The wide receivers, they get the ball when necessary. They're able to get good plays, but they're not really the focal point. It's about that defense, that really good shutdown defense, knowing which of the best players on the field are at all times and trying to take them away more than other things on the field that could be bigger to other teams. So I think they're going to be focused on trying to get rid of the run game with Melvin Gordon and Keenan Allen. They'll let a guy like Tyrell Williams or Mike Williams get their catches if it's absolutely necessary. But the 2 main guys on offense for the Chargers, I think they're going to try to take away. But the biggest thing for me is that Phillip Rivers has had this stigma for years in his career that he can't get these big playoff victories. This is the first time in a while where you're saying the Chargers team has a legitimate shot to win. And I think he's going to step up in this moment. I'm going with the Chargers, and here's why. I think Phillip Rivers, he knows he was in contention for this MVP race, somewhere around there. He was doing very well all year. He led this team to a 12-4 record. Had it not been for a Chiefs loss or something like that, they would have been able to get it done. And I just think he's trying to get this monkey off his back, the Steve Young monkey off his back. And this is a very difficult first task. It is not like one of these easier matchups. Let's say if it was the Bears-Eagles kind of thing. Well, even that's still difficult, but still an easier kind of matchup. You're going against a team you lost 2 weeks ago. It's not an easy setup to the start of the playoffs for you. You couldn't get that first round bye because of the Chiefs. But I think Melvin Gordon's going to do better. I think he's going to try and get to the outside, something like that. They'll give him more opportunities to run with the football. And then overall, spreading the ball on offense. And then you got that defense of the Chargers, which I talked about in the beginning of this year with that preseason. You know how many great playmakers they have. They're going to put pressure on Lamar Jackson. They probably saw the game against the Browns and realized it really doesn't matter with his playing or his passing game. We have to limit his rushing game. Make it his first priority to throw the football rather than to rush it, because there's going to be a QB spy the entire game on Lamar Jackson. And I think the overall experience of Phillip Rivers is just going to get it done in this moment more than Lamar Jackson will. It'll be a fun one. It'll be a very close one. But I got the Chargers winning this game. I'm going to go with a score of 20-17. Kevole.
Unmute there. That would help. Go. This is a very interesting game. Of course, we had the game a couple weeks ago, and we saw what the Baltimore Ravens did on Saturday Night Football against the LA Chargers. Dylan already talked about that. It was so funny because I'm kind of kicking myself because I almost picked the Baltimore Ravens in our preseason preview to win the AFC North, and I was like, if they use Lamar Jackson, I think they really do have a chance to make the playoffs and win the division. And lo and behold, that's what they did. It's almost like I called John Harbaugh myself and said, hey, John, use Lamar Jackson. But the reality is he wasn't ready in the regular season, and they really did a nice job of bringing this guy up. Now, we've got some history here that we do need to talk about, and we need to talk about the fact that rookie quarterbacks just simply do not face veterans. No rookie quarterback has ever led a team to the Super Bowl. they're 0-5 when they play a veteran. There's 2-7 in the last 9, and the last time that's happened was Andy Dalton beat TJ Yates, rookie versus rookie. Russell Wilson beat RG3, rookie versus rookie. So I just want to bring that up. But Phillip Rivers, the last 2 games, 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions, 357 yards, and a passer rating of probably around 55 against the Broncos and the Ravens after that big win against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's kind of interesting when you look at Phillip Rivers' numbers against tougher defenses. He wasn't super great, but they were certainly the worst games that he had of the year. The problem, Lamar Jackson brings such a unique way. It's kind of Michael Vick 2.0, Tim Tebow 2.0. The guy keeps growing, but ultimately, I think that the Chargers have an advantage because they've seen what this guy can do, and I think they can game plan for it. Ultimately, I think what comes down for me is the Chargers skill set versus the Ravens skill set. If this becomes a passing game, if the Chargers can get the lead, they will be fine. If this game is tight or close, I think the Ravens do have the advantage. But I think the Chargers are going to get out ahead here. I think they are going to get the lead, and I think they're going to control this game, and I'm picking the Chargers. But I really can see the Ravens winning this game. As I said, the AFC, you can almost flip a coin for who's going to win each one. So,
Absolutely. No, this guy does not get to do this. What kind of song?
The Chargers! The LA Chargers are going to win this game. But I've said it. I'll say it again. This is a horrible, horrendous matchup for the LA Chargers. This is not a good matchup for the Chargers. And that's why they got their butt whooped. Yes, I'll say it. Butt whooped against the Ravens the first game. But because it's the second time, I know our buddy Kevin Durkant said it in the chat. It's really hard to beat a team twice, especially in a couple of weeks. I mean, we saw it even in 2010. I remember as a Patriots fan, Patriots beat the Jets 45-3. And then they came back like 3 weeks later and the Jets beat them. It's difficult, man. I don't care what the matchup is. But when looking at this is a bad matchup for the Chargers. And I'll say it again. The Chargers are a small defense. They're built on speed. They need to stop the run in this game. They need to load the box. They need to commit to stopping the run. They need to do that. And if they do that, I think we're going to see who the winner of this game is going to be within the first 5 minutes of the game. If I see the Ravens plunging straight forward and pushing the Chargers backwards with ease, the Ravens are going to win. If the Chargers can stop the run in the first quarter, they will win. The Chargers are not a good first quarter team. I brought it up in my Super Bowl predictions. They are not a good first quarter team. They've been outscored 98-78 in the first quarter. And when you get behind against the Ravens, that's not where you want to be. If the Chargers start strong and stop the run, I think they'll win the game. And I think they will because they've seen the tape. They've played him, and they're the only team to have played Lamar and the Ravens and this running scheme for 2 times. This is their second time. I do think that the Ravens do deserve a lot of credit for what they've done with Lamar Jackson. Harbaugh deserves a lot of credit for his coaching. The offensive staff deserves a lot of credit. And also they've kind of taken what the 49ers did in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick that one year and kind of taken that and used that with Baltimore. But they need to commit to stopping the run. I think they need to basically say to Lamar Jackson, you need to beat us with deep throws down the field. And if he does, then fair enough. You know what I mean? If he does, fair enough. They deserve to win because we're trying to stop this. We need to commit these players because we're not big enough purely to take these blocks on one-on-one. So it's going to be a really compelling game, but I honestly think that this game will be decided within the first quarter. The 7-1 Chargers on the road, the 6-2 Ravens at home. This is going to be a really good game, but like Kevole said, if this does come down to the fourth quarter where it's a 3-point game, That's what I think it might be, and that's why I ultimately decided to go with the Chargers, even though I flip-flopped on this game multiple times. So I am going with the Chargers to win and advance to the divisional round. I hope you guys enjoyed this preview with Dylan and Kevole. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe for more Chargers and Ravens and NFL playoffs. All right, guys, let's get to the comments before we get to the last game of the wild card predictions.
All righty, we got Party starting it off here. He says the Ravens are going to win 24-16. He's liking that matchup there. Robot Guy's got the Chargers. You know, I'm not going to go as long as Mitch. That's his shtick. But Dirk Kant says he's going to pick the Chargers. You did bring up his comment as well. DeMarcus, he's saying the Chargers are going to win. Predator says he thinks the Chargers are going to break Lamar Jackson. That'll be interesting. Pretty much everybody's picking the Chargers here, which I did not expect. But we do have an Ultra Ravens pick. So there you go. There's something there. Mitch is a Chargers fan confirmed. That is his closet team. He has stated this. At least he admits it. That is the goal. Where they brought up the fact that 3 of the 4 matchups here in this wild card round are actually rematches from the regular season. So all 3 that we've talked about. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, there we go. Those are the comments for this game.
I want to bring up something.
What's that?
That concerns me about my playoff run about Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers needs to not do too much because at times he wants to take this game and put it on his shoulder. He's got the talent around him. They've got a lot of weapons. And if he gets into that point where he needs to feel like he, dang nammit, takes the ball over, that's where the Chargers are going to get in trouble. So I think we need to see a very calm Phillip Rivers in this playoff run. And that's
so you don't want him in overtime to say we're going to take the ball and score.
Dang nammit, no.
I was gonna go with you don't want him seeing on the football field he's running like this and he's like one of his Phillip Rivers.
No, that's fine, but I mean, I think what Kevole is worried about, and I can see it, is a couple of forced interceptions.
Yes, because he forces the ball at times.
He will.
He does.
He does do that. Well, hopefully the run game with Gordon is going to be the advantage.
And Kevole did pick the Chargers to go to the Super Bowl.
Yes, I did.
And both of you picked them to get to the AFC Championship. So this is a huge game for you guys.
Yep.
All right. The Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
Back in the playoffs. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Wild card weekend, Sunday. I think that this game is going to be good because I just think you have a team that's young, up and coming. You have a great defense. You have a young quarterback who's prone to mistakes, but also prone to amazing plays at the same time. You have a young head coach who came from basically the same coaching tree as a head coach last season who won the Super Bowl, and 2 teams that there's a lot of comparisons to each other when you're talking about the team last year with the Eagles and the Bears this year. I think there's a lot of compelling parts about that. But you also have a team in the Eagles who I am glad they made the playoffs because the Eagles are a lot more exciting, a lot more interesting than a team potentially like the Vikings who could have came in here and probably got their butt whooped by the Chicago Bears.
But we would have missed. We would have had some fantastic arguments about route running between Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen.
This is true. This is true. We're going to miss out on that. But I think the Chicago Bears and the Eagles is going to be a really close, grinded out football game. For you young fans out there, young NFL fans, you may not love this game, but I think there's some old school guys out there that are going to like it. I think weather could be a factor in this game. I think definitely that the line of scrimmage, whoever wins in the run game and gets a better pass rush is going to take this one. Who do you guys think is going to be able to establish their game plan better and take this game? Let's start off with Kevole. Do you think the favorite Bears, the biggest favorite of the weekend, are going to beat the dog mask, ski mask Eagles?
Well, this is Philadelphia Eagles facing Philadelphia Eagles 2.0 in a lot of ways, isn't it? There's so many similarities of what happened, how the Eagles got to where they did last year in the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, and the Bears here. And it's also really interesting because as much as people have been talking about Nick Foles, and they should, for sure, this guy has been balling for 400 yards last few games. Their defense has done a really good job. Their defense contained the Los Angeles Rams, so much so that the Rams actually decided that they needed to get another running back. They've done they did very well against the Houston Texans for the most part. I'll get into a couple of those concerns. After that New Orleans Saints game where Carson Wentz overthrew everybody, the Saints, the Eagles kind of turned everything around. And it was interesting. Foles started spreading the ball around to Alshon Jeffrey, to Nelson. We heard Alshon Jeffrey's name. We heard Nelson Aguilar's name. You heard Darren Sproles' name. You heard Wendell Smallwood's name. And less Zach Ertz. Not that Zach Ertz is bad, but you could see that the Eagles' offense was starting to get a little bit more creative, and their defense was getting the job done. The Chicago Bears have been a very interesting story because at home, they are tough. They are vicious. They're tough to beat. At home, this is they're 80 almost. I'm going to use hyperbole. They're almost 86ish. But on the roads, it's a very different team. I don't know what to make of the Bears because I don't know what I'm going to get from Mitch Trubisky one week or the other. And yes, they're a better team with Mitch Trubisky than they are with Chase Daniel. They have a good running combination in Howard and Cohen. Khalil Mack has changed how that defense is played. Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. But the trust of Trubisky is what I think is going to keep this game close and this magic of St. Nick. The problem with the Eagles is two things. I don't think the Eagles are going to be – the Eagles need to run the ball a lot more. And I understand that they got hurt, but you cannot have Deshaun Watson leading and rushing with 49 yards. You cannot – Nick Foles is not going to be throwing for 400 yards in this game. It's not happening. Nick Foles may not throw for 200 yards in this game. That's a reasonable thing to think. So – to me, this is where I'm concerned. I think that the Bears are more willing to play a low-scoring running game. I think that the Bears' defense has the ability to create takeaways and turnovers. Not that the Eagles don't. I know that they're doing their scheme-ass thing, and they do that. But I trust the Bears' defense. I trust the Bears at home more than I do the Eagles. Wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles win, but I think more things need to go right for the Eagles to win than the Bears to win. That's why I'm picking the Bears to win this game. Where the Bears are at this point in time, we'll get into that next week. I think they're close to the upper echelon. I think ultimately they're a second tier team. But Trubisky needs to play well. They don't turn the ball over, create turnovers. Make this your home game. Keep this your home bar, and make Nick Foles and make that running. Their running backs are too small anyway for the Eagles. Ultimately, that's why I look at the Bears to win this game.
I think it also depends on the Bears how they play this week to ultimately decide where they're at going into next week. I think that's a big thing because we need to see this team actually play in the playoffs first before how much we know about them, going into LA next week if they were to win. Dylan, what do you think about this game? Do you agree mostly with Kevole, or are you going with the upset with the Eagles?
No, I mostly agree with what Kevole's saying, and I got the Bears winning this one. Again, this is another which team is better video that I'll be making. Mitch doing the AFC side, I'm doing the NFC side. Talent-wise, this is actually a pretty close matchup if you think about it. There's some pretty good players on both sides of the ball that make this intriguing for both teams. But I just think the Bears have been the more strong team, and they've been able to do this over the course of a full season. The Eagles have been doing this for a couple of weeks, and I think they just know coming in that this needs to be the game they need to win because they have to have their heads held up high in order to have a great matchup in the divisional round, which would be against the Rams, which they've already beaten this season. I'm not saying it would be easier, but in terms of the defensive side of the ball for the Bears, you know how strong they are. Their defensive line is very, very solid. Khalil Mack is coming in, Akeem Hicks. All these different guys are putting in the right time at the right moment, and they're absolutely crashing the line of scrimmage and making the plays that they want. Their linebacker crew is very solid. Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan. Then you got their secondary led by Eddie Jackson, who has been incredible this season, a guy that hasn't been talked about enough, but has done really, really solid for this defense. And is the leader of that secondary. For their offense, Trubisky's been kind of a mixed bag for me, but he's been able to be the leader, the guy that they trust. Obviously, they moved up even one pick from third to second last year to go get this guy, and they trust him to lead them into situations like this to get these big-time dubs and go into next week. So, I mean, if he's the quarterback, he needs to lead this week, and I think he will. The guy that I'm looking forward to on offense for the Bears is Tariq Cohen. I want to see what this guy is able to do against that Eagles defense. He has been tremendous at catching the ball. He doesn't rush a whole lot. It's more Jordan Howard's responsibility. But catching the ball, that's what Tariq Cohen does best, and I think he's going to do well in that. And the Bears receivers are, you got a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, who used to play for the Eagles, or used to play for the Bears a long time ago. You're going to see that this time around. But you also got Trey Burton on the offensive side for the Bears, who used to play for the Eagles. So that's an interesting kind of dynamic. For the Eagles, it's all about Big Dick Nick. You know him, Nick Foles. You know what he's going to do. He's very capable of leading these big-time situations and these huge upsets that nobody ever picks him to win. I don't know why. I don't know why he can't do this in the regular season, like week 1 or stuff like that when he's being asked to do so. But these big-time situations, when he's not favored, he knows how to come out there and throw these long dart balls to Alshon Jeffrey or Nelson Aguilar. Now he's got Golden Tate. Like, it's pretty crazy. I want to see more of the run game, as Kevole brought up, because it's been non-existent. I like a guy like Josh Adams, but it's not really been there. I think that's going to be a huge weakness because they're going to have to rely on Nick Foles more than anything. And that's the biggest difference for me. Is Nick Foles going to be able to lead the spotlight with no run game against a great defense in the Bears? Like we saw, the Rams secondary can be taken away. The Texans secondary can be used a little bit. I'm talking about the Bears here. It's a different ball game. And I think the Bears are going to have the advantage and win this game. I'm going to go with the score of 31-20. I think it is going to be a solid Bears dub, and they'll be moving on to play the Rams.
High-scoring game. Wow.
Nice.
Okay. For me, I think I am also going with the Bears. Now, there's a couple things to get out of the way right off the bat. I do not believe in the Nick Foles Miracle 2.0, and there are 3 reasons why. Okay, you've brought up one of them, Dylan and Kev. They don't have the same run game. Their run game this year, I think it's 28th ranked. It's not very good. They don't get a great push against basically any team in the league, and they don't have a dynamic runner. The second thing is they're not at home. They won that first game against Atlanta because they were at home. I think if they would have played in Atlanta, honestly, Atlanta probably would have beat them. It came down to the last play, and a lot of things happened in that game, but that was last year. I think Philadelphia, not at home, big difference because there's just that underdog, that stadium, the weather, the field, everything about it factors into helping the Eagles. And the third thing is this game, they are not playing the Atlanta Falcons where they can overpower a team. They're not playing, the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing the Chicago Bears. They're playing in Chicago. They're playing against the best defense in the league. They're playing against a tough, physical, grinded out. This is a team that wants to play the way Philadelphia knows they need to play. Philadelphia knows they need to win this game 20-17. They're not going to win this game 30-27. And to me, the Bears want to play like that, and that's why I'm going with the Bears. The Bears are, of course, a great defense, but I think just on offense, they're a more balanced offense. I think they can hit some more plays down the field against the Eagles' 30-second pass defense. I think they can take advantage of those corners. And I think, like Dylan said, they have Jordan Howard, they have Tariq Cohen. The Eagles don't have anybody like that at running back. Zach Ertz, I think you brought up a good point. He's not really as involved with Nick Foles. I think a big reason for that actually is because the Eagles are taking more shots down the field. They're just not going with the 5-yard in route across the middle to Zach Ertz consistently. They're trying to hit shots, Nelson Aguilar. And they've played some pretty bad secondaries. They played the Rams, who gives up big plays. They played the Texans. They give up big plays. I just don't believe in the Nick Foles miracle this time around. And I think the Bears special teams are going to make 1 or 2 plays with Tariq Cohen and as a punt returner. I think overall the Bears defense too strong at home. it will be a muck it up sort of ball game. It will be low scoring in my opinion. I have it 20-13 for the Bears, but I'm the most confident in this game that the Bears will win out of all the other matchups, but I do still think it will be a touchdown game.
That says something about the weekend, if this is the closest, or if this is like still a one.
It's going to be a good weekend and some good matchups.
Yeah.
Thankful for that.
All right, guys, any comments?
Yeah, let's look at the comments for this game here. We have, do you think Alshon Jeffrey will go off in Chicago or not? Says
He might
Sebastian.
make 1 or 2 plays, but I don't think so.
Well, the biggest thing is that Nick Foles loves the guy. I mean, he loves throwing these big-ass deep balls. I don't know how many times that's going to happen in Chicago with that secondary we're talking about. But
Eagles fans are hoping for a revenge game by Alshon Jeffrey next week and a revenge game for Darren Sproles the week after. That's what they're hoping for.
I'm gonna go with the stat line. I'll give you a stat line for Alshon Jeffrey. I'll go 5 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. I'll give you that. There you go.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna go 4 catches for 48 yards.
No touchdown. All right.
0.
Kev, you want to put a stat line?
I'm with you about 5 for 60. I think if the Eagles do get a 100-yard receiver, though, this is a different game. That's something.
Yep, I agree. Robot says the Bears get that W and end the streak of good old St. Nick. DeMarcus has got a 17-point victory for the Eagles. He does not trust this young Bears team whatsoever, it looks like. Ghost Skittles got the Bears 24-13. Sebastian's got the Bears as well, 25-17. Durkan says he believes in Nick Foles' magic, so he's going with the Eagles. Let's see here. Ultra's got a 30-23 Bears victory. Trubisky plays well at home. The defense is unstoppable at home, and he thinks the Bears offense will play well, but he does think Foles will get his plays. And that is it. That is the stat, or those are the comments.
All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up, but let's get the plugs in. We have a lot of stuff coming out. I'm sure Kev's working on a couple of things as well. So, Dylan, plug your stuff.
Yes, tomorrow you're going to see the which NFL team is better, Cowboys or Seahawks video. Very excited for that. It's all edited. It's in the can. Just got to put the audio. You guys will see that tomorrow. Friday, you'll have the Bears and Eagles. Which team is better? You guys got to know who I think is going to win both games, but you'll see who I think on a player-by-player analysis is better, and you'll see that. And Saturday, you'll see that live stream of Kev and I or the Seahawks Cowboys. Very excited for that. So you'll be seeing a lot of me for the next 3 days.
I have a lot of videos. I have, of course, I just released a Kevole. I edited for Kevole. Kevole blessed us with his sweet voice. So he is out there on the channel for his Super Bowl predictions. If you haven't checked that out, I know a lot of people have seen mine. A lot of people have seen Dylan's. If you haven't seen Kev's, go check that out because I know it can be confusing, the same channel releasing 3 different videos about the same thing. I always think about that. I'm like, I don't want to put the same title 3 times in a row, so let's just do something else with Kevole's picks. So we have, of course, on the other side of things for Dylan, I'm doing the AFC. So I'm doing the Chargers and Ravens for who's better. And I'm also doing the other game, which Colts and Texans, which wouldn't come to my mind. But again, guys, those videos, who's better? It's not a preview. This was the preview right here. This is the pick. Those videos are who's better. All right, who's a better player? Who would I rather have on my team? Who's more talented? You know, that doesn't always mean who's going to win the game. So check those videos out. I'm also coming out with a video I did last year for every game, which is who are the X factors of the game. I usually give about 3 for each team. Who are the key players to watch out for? They were very successful last year. You guys enjoyed them. So I basically am going to do the same thing. What else I got? I got a couple other things that we're kind of thinking about right now that if I have some time, we can throw out there as well. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on the Bottom Line View. So if you aren't subscribed, subscribe. If you are subscribed, make sure you have that notification bell on because it's going to be a lot of videos. And hit that like button. Kevole, what's going on for you?
Saturdays, hockey podcast every Saturday will be on. We generally focus on the Canucks, but we got a lot of other stuff going on because we've got clown shows in Ottawa and we got clown shows at Edmonton, and we've had a disaster in Canada with the World Juniors as the Canadian Juniors will not medal for the first time at home. That is something else. Also, there was a trade. Thatcher Demko is going to be coming up with the Vancouver Canucks, so we'll be talking a lot about that. And lots of stuff going on. Sam Bennett ran over San Jose Sharks defenseman, and now the Sharks and Flames are now at war, at feud. So there's lots going on in hockey right now. Very fascinating.
And Kevole, the Penguins have won 7 straight.
Yes, the Penguins. The Penguins have won 7 straight and are on their way to winning the Stanley Cup, as Mitch will say. Yes, although you better talk to John because they've got that parade cemented there in Toronto. Like it's
Ghost
going down.
is asking, where do you find Kev's podcast?
Spreaker.com, Kevole. So yeah, Spreaker.com, Kevole.
Like speaker with an R in the middle of it.
Yes, you can also subscribe to YouTube channel. It doesn't look as fancy as the Bottom Line View, but it's going to look fancy this year. We're going to do a lot of different stuff: news, sports. Wednesdays, PowerCast 97.9 podcast as well. Check that out. And yeah.
By the way, guys, I love some of your comments you leave on my videos. Like, false. This is the last comment I got. Just false. Thanks for that comment.
When we release these videos, the big playoff prediction videos, you get a ton of comments, like almost like that.
And we love the comments, but like keep them a little bit more analytical than false. I do want to talk about something as we end this video, though, hopefully for a few minutes here, and hopefully we can release this as a separate video. But Kevole, you brought up a clown show in the NHL, but there's a clown show going on in the NFL right now. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody's making memes, GIFs, videos. Their own player, Jesse James, the road dog Jesse James, is going out there and he's saying we're like the Kardashians of the NFL. And Antonio Brown is having a press conference with James Harrison. I know, Kevole, you're sitting over there, you're laughing, you're having fun because you've seen this coming pretty much back a few years here on the Bottom Line View, ever since we've documented it. So I know you're over here saying, I told you so. I told you so. So why don't you tell the people you told them, and also what you think of this situation with Antonio Brown?
Well, let's look back at what the Pittsburgh Steelers have been. They have been a team of Jerome Bettis, Joe Green, Hines Ward. They've been this team that has kept everything inside. It has been, you wear the Pittsburgh Steeler jersey, you wear the Pittsburgh Steeler helmet, and you bleed the black and the gold. That's all you do. It's not about the name on the back. It's about what you're wearing. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers, and frankly, look back. Once Hines Ward left this team, and they gave it to Ben Roethlisberger, this team has turned into an absolute disaster. Look it up. I'm not wrong. Once Hines Ward left, this is the clown show that we've got here. We've got Antonio Brown throwing footballs at Ben, demanding. He's got press conferences. He's got trades. Demands. You got Le'Veon Bell, who decided to sit out a season instead of play football.
You got Facebook Live. You got Gatorade on the sidelines. You got showing up to meetings late, which is something that recently came out, and Brown never shows up to a meeting on time.
You got Juju Smith-Schuster riding bicycles.
You got Antonio Brown dropping stuff off his hotel, basically his hotel room, just dropping it off for fun.
The problem, this is the thing, is they gave this team to a guy that doesn't want to leave the team, and it's Ben. Ben has been more interested in Ben than he has been the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they knew it because they almost traded this guy when he had that motorbike accident. They almost traded him for the Los Angeles Rams. Look it up. That was a fact. Or the St. Louis Rams back then. They were close to trading him, but they gave him a second chance. This guy has not been the key to the Pittsburgh Steelers' success. Not really. He's been more about himself, and that has permeated in this team. And once Hines Ward left, they put this to Ben. This team has been a disaster. And they put a guy that is I'm sorry, Mike Tomlin's too young to be the coach of this team. And he has lost control of this dressing room. And I don't think he's even worried. Like,
Kev,
Tomlin,
at a certain point, Kev, I know you're going to rip Ben Roethlisberger because that's what you do, and that's fair enough. I think he deserves a lot of blame here. But at a certain point, Mike Tomlin is the head coach.
Yes, of course.
I know he's not the babysitter, but he is the head coach. And when you're the head coach, you have your certain way how you do things. Like, I know I'm going to be all the high and mighty Patriots fan here, but this is just a great example of Bill Belichick, what he does disciplining players. In the first round of the playoffs, back when Wes Welker, even in a press conference, just talked a little trash to Rex Ryan, he sat Wes Welker for like the first part of the game in a playoff game. There is nothing. And the Patriots sat Malcolm Butler. We still don't know why they sat Malcolm Butler. So it's kind of like system. It's like the belief in the team. What is the franchise about? And I think the identity of the Patriots has been well known. The identity of the Steelers with Mike Tomlin is that of a clown show. We don't know. There's no discipline in this team. The star players can do whatever they want. They can get away with whatever they want. Ben Roethlisberger can do whatever he wants. Antonio Brown can do whatever he wants. There's no discipline in this team. And when the leaders are not disciplined and they don't know their role and that they're not the king of the castle, there's still players on a football team, that there's no player bigger than the team, which is what everybody says about the Patriots. For the Steelers, Ben is bigger than the team. Brown is bigger than the team. Bell is bigger than the team. And that's a big, big reason why they're where they're at. In my opinion, the Steelers this season are the most disappointing team to not make the playoffs in my entire lifespan. Okay? So since I was born, this is the most disappointing team to not make the playoffs. I thought the Steelers were for sure. Look at their talent. And I wanted my friend Mike to come on here to speak to it, but he always says this team should have one Super Bowl at least with this latest run of talent, with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Big Ben and all these players they've had. They should have at least one Super Bowl. They have all these talented players, but the coach can't discipline his players, and the players are all about themselves. They're selfish, and we've seen that with Antonio Brown. And as much as people want to talk about, other receivers, other drama receivers like Odell, I've been saying it all along. Antonio Brown's just as bad, if not worse, than players like that. So with Ben and Brown and Bell, I just think the Steelers, they've always lacked the discipline. That's why they lose to crappy teams. That's why they lose to they tie the Browns with Hugh Jackson. They lose to the Raiders. They almost lose to the Bengals with their season on the line. Antonio Brown doesn't even want to play and leaves at halftime when he's on the sideline. It's a joke, honestly. This team was way too talented, and then they just blow up, and now Antonio Brown is potentially going to be traded, even though they're in a situation where they can't trade him because they'll be way too up against the cap, and it's going to cost them a ton of money. So they've stuck themselves in a terrible situation, and I don't know how they're going to get out of it. Dylan, what's your reaction to this situation?
It's pretty disappointing. First off, as an NFL fan, you look to see the best teams, the best competition, the best players, and they've got great talent, as you guys have obviously brought up. But it feels like they just decided as a group, we're going to go within our own collective systems, we're going to be our own people, and we're never going to be a team, which in a sport like golf, you can do that because you are only your own person. But as a football team that's run by 53 people on a roster, head coaches, bunch of people that are relying on you, it doesn't work like that. And these guys are clearly not team players. A guy like Juju, I feel bad for the guy because what you saw on there week 17, he was out there getting these great plays. You know, he was trying to help his team win a football game in week 17. By the way, I still think it's a little bit of jealousy from maybe the fact that he didn't lead the league, lead his own team in receptions and yards this year. somebody else like a guy like Juju.
Dylan, I think what Shannon Sharp even said about the point where Antonio Brown loves to win. He's all about the team when he's catching 12 passes for 150 yards and a touchdown. But when he's catching 4 passes for 42 yards and 0 touchdowns, he's not happy about winning, even if they win 13-3.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to him whether his team is winning if he can have success with that team winning. And I agree with your point there. It's sad, but a guy like Juju, who is he's 22 years old. He's younger than anybody else on this entire football team for the most part. He is not the most mature person out there, but he has gotten this team. He's making great plays. And then what is he doing after the game? As they brought up on the Skip and Shannon Undisputed episode today, what was he doing? He was kneeling on the field watching to see if the Ravens were to lose that football game because he cared. I don't think anybody else cares. They're just like, here's my paycheck. If you guys can help me have this success, we're going to have this success. If not, I'm getting paid. Because, again, this is all built up on aggression from AB. He's had this for years because it wouldn't just be like, oh, I threw a football, I'm not going to show up for practice. It has to be a continuous strain of there's something I don't like here, there's something I don't like here. Apparently, he's going to do a podcast with James Harrison, like an interview or whatnot, and he's going to reveal all the stories that shouldn't be revealed to the public.
Honestly, they're at a crossroads. Like, they need to make a decision fast. They need to do something because this franchise is stuck in a spot where you're going to potentially have your 2 best players who don't even want to play next year.
It's sad. It really is sad.
I understand the anger towards Antonio Brown. Like, I'm not saying that this guy is a team guy because it's very clear that he's not. But I think it's
more Antonio Brown's fault in this instance than Big Ben.
Okay, but Ben Roethlisberger went on his radio show earlier this year and ripped not one person. He ripped his entire offense publicly. And he broke it down. James Washington ran a wrong route. Juju Smith-Schuster ran a wrong route. Offensive line this. James Conner this. When your face of your franchise goes public and rips the team, what do you expect Antonio Brown to do? Like, we get all upset about Antonio Brown, but the face of your franchise is wrecking your franchise. And by the way, he never talked about what he did wrong. Because he does nothing wrong. It's Todd Haley's fault. It's Mike Tomlin's fault.
To throw that in there, Kevole, this is the guy that basically sat out half a game because he didn't really feel like playing. I mean, there was nothing wrong with him. He blamed his injury on a X-ray machine that's too old and it didn't work. Meanwhile, he's watching the game for about 5 possessions and they lose to the Raiders. If they beat the Raiders and he plays, they're in the playoffs.
I'm almost more mad at what Mike Tomlin brings to the table because, again, it's been like the same situation. Oh, Mike Tomlin's gotten us to Super Bowl. Oh, Mike Tomlin has given us these great performances. Oh, Mike Tomlin's such a great coach. He's such a great player coach. It doesn't matter if the players run the league. Run your own team. It does not matter what the coach brings because he gives all the control to his other players, and they run the kingdom, basically. So it's a terrible mess that shouldn't happen. Like, honestly,
enables them.
It's really unfortunate. You know the talent that they have here, but at the same point, it's like Jesse James. They're the Kardashians. It is just a public media swirl, right? It's just, oh, here we go. What's next on Keeping Up with the Steelers? What's gonna happen this week? Oh, AB, you're going on Facebook Live. I guess I got to tune into that. Let's see what it is. So. It's sad. And most of these guys are older. You know, Juju is like the most responsible one. He's fucking 22. These other guys, Big Ben's been in the league for, 14 years at this point, and he's still ragging on his own teammates? It's honestly pathetic.
So what's going to happen? Are they going to trade AB, or are they going to keep it together and try and move on?
I think this is, for me, and I know you're going to say I'm ridiculous. I think you got to trade both AB and Ben.
Ben's not getting traded, though.
Of course he's not. Of course he's not, and that's the problem. This guy feels untouchable.
If you trade AB and Ben, why don't you also fire Mike Tomlin? Mike Tomlin is in my opinion, this starts with Mike Tomlin because he enables these players to do stuff like this.
Yep.
This is not happening on a Pete Carroll team.
But where do you find a replacement for Mike Tomlin? Because you need a big man.
Get somebody else.
Yeah, I don't think you can just get
Bring
anybody
in Brian
else.
Flores from the Patriots.
If your goal is to trade Ben and AB, and then you're going to find
a younger Mike Tomlin, essentially.
You're gonna find somebody out there. It's going to be a couple of years to fix this rebuild. It's not, if you're going to get rid of all those people, it's not going to be a 1-year fix. Even if they keep these players in,
you can't.
But think about it, Kev. They are all also in a situation where they probably have 1 or 2 more years with Ben, anyways. So with Ben leaving in 1 or 2 years, they're stuck in the same situation in 2 years.
Ben might play till he's 45.
He almost retired mid-season last year because people said he sucked. Yeah, he's not lasting another 5 years. I think what I'm trying to say here is if you're going to trade Ben, you're going to trade Brown, well, you might as well just start it all over because you're going to have to start it all over in 2 years anyways because you're not winning the Super Bowl with Mason Rudolph.
No. Well, and hell, Big Ben's going to rag on Mason Rudolph. I'm not going to help him. I'm not going to coach him up and be a better quarterback than me. Are you kidding me? That's selfish. Like, that's so pathetic on so many levels. I just think you need to start this all over. You realize what the turmoil has been. Le'Veon's going to leave. He's going to get traded somewhere. He's going. So that's one issue. And then you got a guy like AB who's been selfish all over the media. Everybody knows what he's doing. Got to get rid of him. I know it's a lot of money to waste, but get rid of AB and fire Tomlin.
And you're not going to get a lot for him. You're not going to get his. You're not like that's.
No, I wonder what team would even want to get him at this point.
If you were a team, who would you take? Antonio.
Depends on the system.
I would say it depends. Yeah, exactly. It depends on where he would go to and how it would fit.
He wouldn't fit in Seattle. He wouldn't fit in San Francisco, but he could fit in Rams.
Why wouldn't he fit in San Francisco?
I think that.
Are you talking about the personality or the player?
The player. I think I don't always look at Antonio Brown. Like Antonio Brown can run deep routes, but Antonio Brown isn't the guy. He's not going to scare you with his speed. And I do think
the crazy thing about this, Kev, is I feel like Odell's more likely to get traded because he can actually get traded. Well, like Antonio Brown, if they trade him, they're sacrificing a lot of salary cap.
Yeah. Well, and the Giants GM says he is not going to trade Odell though. He's saying there's no reason we picked him or signed him if we're going to trade him. So, I don't know. It's a very messy situation. It's just sad that I think Tomlin's at the focal point. Just fire Tomlin, and then you got to focus on everything else. I think. Get rid of that shitstorm because he's the one that's in the center.
And also, I know that they have these current issues, but the Steelers are a great place to be the head coach of a football team. Absolutely. They have great ownership. They have a great fan base. They are a historic franchise. They have full support into a football team and program, and they'll be willing to listen to that program and build from the ground up. So if you're a coach, even if you have this whole problem, you probably go in there thinking you can fix it. So even if you fire Mike Tomlin, I'm sure a lot of people would want to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and one of them may be named Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy.
Well, first of all, he can get out of his Patriots hate by playing them every year and be like, I'm going to focus on playing the Patriots. But also, by the way, I love Tony Dungy. But also, they've only had 3 head coaches in like 50 years. This is a place that's going to get you long-term jobs if you know what you're doing. So,
but you also, if you're the Steelers, what you're hiring for a long-term project. You're not hiring a guy you're not hiring your Steve Wilkes. Like you got to get.
Yeah, but if the goal is to get rid of all these players, this is going to be a long time coming. You want to fix this program because it's not working. The system is not. Like it's so broken that you have to take years to repair it.
The other interesting thing I think with the Steelers going for that I think has been a big struggle is the Steelers were almost in a sense ruthless with their players. If there was a step back, they were done. We were moving on. Now it's loyalty. It's about it. They're keeping like the Browns, the Bells, the Bens a little bit longer maybe than they should. Like I know Ben's a legend and some, but they've lost that ruthless to be a little bit more loyal, and it's almost stabbing them in the back. in a
All
lot of
right.
ways.
We'll end it with this. A great comment from Kevin Durkant. He says, one and done to Tim Tebow. No playoffs. No playoffs. One and done. Lost in the divisional round. Beat Matt Moore and Alex Smith and got destroyed by the Patriots. One and done to Jags. No playoffs. That's been the Pittsburgh Steelers' recent teams and success level. That's not Steelers-like, and that's how we're going to end it. What do you guys think about the Antonio Brown situation? Do you think it's Ben's fault, Brown's fault, Mike Tomlin's fault? Let us know in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more Bottom Line View. We'll see you next time. Peace out.
Peace.